Welcome to DisCo Talk, where we're talking all things all abilities. I'm LANA, the development manager here at Disability Co.
And I'm ALYSSA, support worker and community content creator here at DisCo.
So today we're talking about accessible play spaces.
Yeah, accessible play spaces. I think it's a pretty important conversation, especially for our kids and our youth.
Yeah.
Play is super important for brain development and socialization and all of that sort of thing.
Well, I came across it because really, to be honest, I'd never really thought that much about accessible play areas before. And play centres are such a huge thing. You see one or multiple, in every suburb, and you have kids' parties and you meet up with friends and, pre-COVID in play centres. And it just, because I probably don't have a child with a disability or something like that, it just didn't occur to me that, hey, for a child with a disability, those spaces can either not be accessible or maybe be really overwhelming if they have sensory things, whether they could get really overwhelmed. So I came across this because I was either Facebook or Instagram, and I came across the Puzzle House, which is an accessible play centre in Pakenham.
Yeah.
And I thought, geez, how are there not more of these around? And so basically it's a family and they have a son or grandson, because there's a few of them, that we just felt things were really overwhelming when they would go to play centres, and so they just couldn't participate in those sorts of spaces. So they decided to open up one for themselves. But I mean, I then shared this with you.
Yeah, so my puzzle house was set up by Mandy and Robin, co-owners of my puzzle house, and they've made it basically to be fully accessible to anyone. So it's a really awesome place. Speaking to Robin over the phone, it sounds so family orientated, and it just seems to be a real space that anyone can be themselves and feel confident. They offer a ton of different programs. So from their school holiday programs, weekend drop-off, they do parties and private hire. And my favorite is that they do teen nights on the first Friday of every month. So that's for a place for teens to come in, socialize, for it to be accessible, to feel confident, to make more friends. And as we said, it's really important in early life as well as early teen life. Super important to be making them connections and having a community surround you.
I can just imagine being a family that play is such a big part of learning, and particularly if you are out and you're meeting with other families and you're wanting to go to a playground or something like that. If you have a child and they have to sit out all the time, or they get overwhelmed and they just can't participate, that's a really isolating feeling. That's a really isolating thing. Do you think that, I'm actually, now that I know about this, I'm genuinely surprised that there aren't more play centres like this, or accessible playgrounds even. I think I've spotted a few playgrounds that maybe have some special needs swings and things like that. So I think we're getting a bit better, but I feel like there's a fair way to go.
Yeah, 100%. They are popping up a little bit everywhere. I know when I was, and I'm still quite young now, but when I was little, accessible play spaces weren't really a thing. I remember probably seeing a wheelchair swing maybe when I was 12 or 13, and that wasn't too long ago. It was like 10 years ago. So that was something that popped up, and and knowing that's what it was for. But they are popping up slowly these days. But I think also being a family, as you said, wanting to connect with other family, accessible beaches are a whole nother thing as well. So having the wheelchairs that can work on sand and be able to go out into the water if you're someone who uses a wheelchair.
Yeah, I think there's so many areas that particularly as an able-bodied person myself, we take so many places for granted, and we go about our lives doing things without sometimes ever thinking, hey, how about if it wasn't as easy for me as this? Would I be isolated and not be able to participate at all, or is there going to be ways made to be able to facilitate me? And I think that's a really important conversation to have, not just around ramps into shopping centres and things like that to really go further. And particularly, I think, around kids, because learning and play go hand in hand, and being able to have those interactions and socialisation at those ages is incredibly important. So if they're continually isolated from those experiences, they're missing out on such a big part of their development.
Yeah, and of childhood in itself as well.
Yeah.
One thing that I am quite surprised when we talk about accessible beaches as well, and building sandcastles and doing all that sort of thing, is I did hear about there's places overseas that every single one of their beaches legally have to be an accessible beach and have these. And living in Australia, we do have accessible beaches, but I don't think I've ever been to one. I've seen a list of where they are, but I don't think I've ever been to one, which is pretty crazy when Australia is very known for its beaches.
Yeah.
So, I hope to see a bit of progression in that in the future, and the way things get done is by talking about them.
Yeah. It's just incredible to think that we're in a country where so much of our population, or so many of our population, live on the coast. We're very much a coastal country. The internal areas of our country are almost deserted or desert. So to have that bigger population living on the edges, and as we've mentioned in previous podcasts, 15% of our population are people with disabilities. To not have that accessibility in our beaches is mind-boggling to me.
Yeah.
And so I think that definitely needs to be something that we explore and we look into more as a society, and in councils and in government, that places like that are really big pillars of our culture, really, beaches and barbecues and community and getting together, that those things, accessibility is thought of.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. But I just love what this family are doing. They are such an inspiration, and I so hope that even big business, really, that maybe there's someone out there right now that's listening to this and realizes what a gap in the market that this is, that all play centres should have an accessible area at the very least, that there could be a sensory room for kids that get overwhelmed, or there could be more accessible equipment, because then that absolutely does bring more inclusion to families. And if there is a place and a brand out there who is willing to do that, or if there's more independent ones, just like this amazing family that are willing to build that, there is a demand for it. Why not do it?
Yeah, 100%. And I hope that people listening go check out My Puzzle House. It's a really family orientated business, and they're doing it for the community and for people.
Yeah, one of the cool things, especially that I really want to mention, is that because people with NDIS plans can go and access community and whatnot, but also it's helping in learning and building skills, they can actually utilise their NDIS plans to go to My Puzzle House. Yeah. Unlike any other play centre. So that's pretty amazing that during all of this, one, you're helping a family put food on the table and keep running, but two, it also is another space that if you're someone with disability and you want to or you need to have some change for your physical well-being and your mental well-being, then that's actually a really amazing option that you can have there.
Yeah, talking to Robin during lockdowns, they will have a couple people come throughout the day separately for about 2 hours, and still being able to access learning during these lockdowns, which can be so hard on some people, is awesome. So I'd definitely look into it if you're someone with an NDIS plan, or just wanting to have a look at some accessible play centres.
Yeah, sounds good. And they go over the top and above and beyond for everyone, but particularly, of course, with COVID, you can book in a session and then they go through and disinfect absolutely everything. I saw a video, I think, the other week of them doing it, and it looked pretty intense with spray guns and whatnot. But just their dedication to making sure that everything is, of course, perfectly safe and done correctly and done right, so people can still have the opportunity to go there to learn. I take my hat off to them. I think we should have more people like this in the world. Yeah. They're just an amazing family.
If you want to check out My Puzzle House, you can see the links in the description, as well as links to accessible playgrounds in Victoria and accessible beaches. If you've ever had a problem with finding accessible playgrounds or accessible play spaces, or you've got a favourite one you'd like to share with us, leave us a comment down below and we'll be sure to get back to you.
Cool. And as always, if there's anything that you want us to be talking about, make sure you pop it in the comments. We read absolutely everything and we are so open to your feedback. It's all about conversation. So conversation in the comments and conversation here on camera. We want to hear it all from you guys. So thank you so much for tuning in with us again. And we so hope that you'll follow us into the next podcast, which is actually going to be about our amazing ALYSSA's book.
Thank you. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe, whatever platform you're streaming us from. And yeah, we'll see you next time.